conversation. And then I want to bring it down and actually contextualize it from a Canadian context. And really how not just Bollywood, but content and media and entertainment is evolving and shifting to serve the diverse needs of Canadians and specifically South Asian Canadians. Of panelists here, I'm not going to read all their bios, but I will give you a couple highlights. To my left, first of all, we have Vinay Vermani, who needs no introduction. Vinay is an actor, writer, and producer. Everybody knows Vinay from the hit Breakaway, of course. What the Punjabi ice hockey movie is usually what I hear from people. Dr. Cabby is also forthcoming. Is it this year?
Yes.
In 2014, sorry. 2014, Dr. Cabby will be coming out as well. Next to Vinay, we have Madeline Ziniak, who is National Vice President of Rogers Omni Television. Omni Television, of course, needs no introduction. Madeline herself has over 30 years experience in ethnic media. She is also the chair of the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, known as SEMA, and I believe SEMA has an event taking place tonight as well. And if you would like to join SEMA, I'm sure Madeline will let you know all about that as well. All the way from New York. He decided to forego Black Friday shopping. Ken Naz, the president and CEO of Eros Entertainment of the Americas, is here to join us. Ken, are you a Canadian or American? I don't know.
I'm actually a Canadian.
Okay, so great.
A very proud one of that.
Excellent. So Ken spent obviously a lot of his time in Canada with companies like Cineplex. We're very happy to have Ken and team here today. Eros Entertainment will actually be honored this evening at our gala. Binoy Thomas is a veteran film journalist. I've known Vinay for some time as well. He's also editor of The Weekly Voice. I think he's going to provide a very interesting perspective again from that 30,000 feet in the air on Bollywood and what's happening in Canada. And last but not least, we have Hari Srinivas, president of Ethnic Channels Group. Ethnic Channels Group, of course, is a distributor of ethnic television channels across Canada and the United States. Z TV Canada is probably one that you're most familiar with. Prior to Ethnic Channels Group, Hari headed up B4U North America, based out of the US as well. So big round of applause, please, for starters. To all of our panelists for being here. Ken, you can do some Black Friday shopping a little bit later, I'm sure. And happy Thanksgiving, of course, to you as well. So again, we want to start, and my first question is actually directed to Ken and more Ken and Binoy, because I think, your time in the industry, specifically the Bollywood industry, I want to start there. In your experience, where has the Bollywood film industry gone from where it started to where we are today, and where is it headed? So either one of you.
Great question. I'll try to keep it short. I think we've come a long, long way. Whenever we used to talk about, I've been in this business, my dad actually, I grew up in Toronto as a little child. And if anybody's been to Gerrard Street, it was actually started by my father. And we used to have a Naz cinema over there. So I've been there in this business a long time. And whenever we used to talk about movies, years ago, maybe even up to like 5-7 years ago, it was always, oh yeah, your movies with, that song and dance and people, dancing around the trees and things like that, which we all grew up with, which we loved. I think they've evolved in a way where you are seeing, movies like Baag Milka Baag, where you are seeing movies like Vicky Donor, where you are seeing movies like English, and I could continue to name them on and on. So I think we've come a long way. I think one of the issues that we had in India, if we can, before we come to Canada, one of the issues that we had in India was prior to maybe 2006, 2005, we didn't really have what we call industry status. So it was hard to get money to make movies, so it consisted of hundreds and hundreds of individual producers who would, come up with money on their own. They would try to get money from friends, relatives, all over the place. Since it got industry status, it's become more organized. And on top of that, as more and more multiplexes and cinemas are opening in India, I was reading a report a little while back that I may stand corrected on this, but there was literally like one screen for like 1 million people in India at one time. And whereas in places like, US and Canada, it could be like one screen for every 150 people. So it was quite a bit of a difference. So that's one area which is growing. And I think the other area that's growing is that our audiences are becoming more and more diverse, and they are enjoying movies which are, I don't know if you want to call it intelligent, or, they're different. They're not your, boy meets girl stories, or they're not, super melodramatic, which like I said, we love them. We love those movies. So I think there's a big growth in that sense. And a lot of we have a lot of talented people, but they, somebody said, I was talking to somebody in Bombay a while back, and he goes, we have a lot of talented people, but they're a little raw. And they need, more, fine-tuning and training, which I think is happening now as we speak. And again, if I could name some of the movies which are being featured, let's say on Toronto Film Festival, they're going to Cannes, they're going to Venice and all these festivals. And on top of that, the most important thing is they're entertaining. We all have a little a persona about festival movies, that, they start with a B, the boring word. But no, they're being entertaining, they're fun. And, just getting back to Canada, love Canada. As I said, I've grown up here. It is such a diverse multicultural. I was fascinated listening to you, David. What a great story. I think they should be made into a movie, to be honest with you. I'd love to see that one. But there's such a diverse culture here, and our movies here are seen by, by not only, people, South Asians, which of course they love it. We have a huge Punjabi population in Canada. We have a huge South Asian population in here, but they're also being seen, by, thanks to places like Omni, and you guys are doing such an amazing job. I wish we had people like you in US, but a lot of people are seeing it, and I hear from my friends, and friends of my relatives, and they're saying, oh God, we saw some movie on television. Where can we go to the theaters to see it? And our movies are being shown at the cineplexes and all the so I'll stop at that.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I should also add, to all the panelists, feel free to jump in. The point of a panel discussion is to have dialogue between all of you.
Bobby, are you going to cut me off? How many minutes do I have?
You're done, thank you.
I have.
Next question.
Unfortunately, I've spent a pretty long time in Bollywood. A very creative part of my life, actually. So I started when they were running around the trees, but not quite in black and white, but in Technicolor, or Eastman color those days. So we are talking about Bollywood and beyond, and in its growth. I really have a different take, and Ken is a industry man. He's about money and box office. But if you really look at a recent movie that some of you must have seen, Avatar, you would think they're still running around trees very much, even in Hollywood. So it's that maybe we set the trend about, it used to be a joke internationally, how our heroes and heroines are running around the trees. In some ways, I think the best thing that happened was the music. The music that was inspired from the West. If you really go back, some of you might remember, I see some gray hairs, Shankar Jaikishan, or, most of the music, really speaking, if you want to be brutally honest with our own industry, they were lifted. It's very clear that they were, but it was presented to a new audience in India, and we appreciated it very much. There was Indian touches added to it, so it was, but if you really talk about music, that has gone much deeper into the international psyche than the films themselves. The films actually, I remember, if I have to bore you with some old stories, I mean, I've met people, in fact, a producer whose brother, Kumari, died. He used to take reels of film, the old Bollywood films, through African villages. And that's how he made his fortune. He used to set up, in a small village with a projector. Even some of the very well-known industrialists today, like Hindujas, they started with distributing Bollywood films in Iran and other places. So there was a push towards internationalizing the music. In fact, the magazine that I worked for, Stardust, which was perhaps the most exciting magazine those days, we started the first ever international media for an Indian publishing or any event. Was in '74 from London. We printed and published from London. And it was very popular even in way back when I guess the immigrant population was not much. And our turnover, our business was much better than many of the Bollywood films that were released in the UK those days. So it started early, but I really think we have not really made the breakthrough because Madeline might know, we had a couple of years ago a huge show, IFA, the Film Awards, which I think all of us collectively paid about $12 to $13 million from our taxpayers' money to get here. But I was there. In fact, thanks to Madeline's outfit, Omni, I became very famous talking about it. And I didn't see too many, let's say, white people or black people inside Rogers Center. So even with that kind of hype, it was the most hyped up Indian event ever since I moved here. It didn't attract a crossover audience. I think that is true because of a number of reasons. I don't know, I don't have the time to go into it, but maybe as we progress with the discussion, I can contribute some points.
Anyone, I think Madeline, you have something to
I think
add.
that's really Omni's role, and I think what we've done is invested in talent that are really pushing the bar and making this really, truly a social movement. And I think it's important to have that kind of exposure. Also, we've invested our documentary fund. I mean, we're coming out with Bollywood Star in the new year in spring. And interesting to note that this was a competition for Bollywood talent right across the country in Vancouver and Ontario. And the people who came out to the competition were not just South Asian. It was diverse Canada. And to another point, the crew itself, who was working on this series, is also very diverse. And I think it's important as an over-the-air broadcaster to be able to expose, to be able to bring audiences into this whole arena to really make this a cross-national, diverse craft and art. And I think we're also, when you invest in new talent who either are from abroad or born in Canada, they are also contributing to the definition of Bollywood and redefining it and actually bringing Canadian values to this. So I think this is an important fundamental foundation. And what I think is also important in nation building as far as entertainment goes, it continues to raise the bar of acceptability of different genres and really does break that ceiling where there's only, opera is only accepted in Canada or classical music. It's really pushing the diversity of the enrichment and the appreciation of different art forms and making this very cool, making it very trendy, and making it very contemporary. So I think this contributes to us as a global village, quite frankly.
I think that's a great point. I want to actually turn to Vinay in a second because he's probably closest to the industry in terms of being on the inside than any of us. I think a lot of us are a little bit on the outside, but Vinay has been in a Bollywood film, but I would by no means classify him as a Bollywood actor, and I don't think he would either. Vinay, why don't you shed some light on this topic?
Well, over time, I've really realized that being Canadian is so unique. And I feel that sometimes people are at a loss when they say, what is Canadian culture? But I can really proudly say that Canadian culture is the coming together of all these different cultures. Each of our individual stories are so unique, and that's what really defines us. That's what makes us stand out. And, you know, early on when I was getting into the movie business, as a writer, as an actor, as a producer, I wanted to promote that cultural diversity in whatever film I may do. And having now produced and acted in 2 films, I really took it as a personal responsibility to bring together all this talent to Toronto, showcase our city, showcase our culture. But I still feel there's so much more to be desired between India and Canada from a talent perspective. We have the stories. I mean, India has so much talent. The fact that, you know, they're producing the amount of films that they are, in the budgets that they are. You know, I think that both countries can learn so much from each other. And, you know, just as, you know, Ken was saying, is that Bollywood films are changing. You know, they're becoming a lot more unique. And I think that the Canadian story is also very unique as well. And, you know, all I can hope is that to be one of the leaders in that. And I think that Canada is really special in the way the support that you have for the arts is incredible. It's like no other country. The fact that you have organizations like Telefilm Canada, like the OMDC, all these wonderful organizations that want to promote that unique cultural story. I remember when we were just starting Breakaway, and Rob Lowe, who's a Hollywood legend, I didn't even know him at the time, and the first day of shooting, he came up to me and he gave me a big hug and he said, "This is what I love about Canada, is the fact that such a big feature film can be a platform for 5 Indian guys in turbans playing ice hockey. That's what I love about doing this movie, and that's what I love about Canada." Yeah.
So the term Bollywood, this is, Harry, I want to get your view on this. I think from the outside, so my back, I was with Rogers for forever, heading up multicultural marketing there, and whenever we'd